1903 was defined by the innovation of aviation. The Wright brothers achieved the first powered flight on December 11 in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. But also in 1903, a steam-powered car inventor, Freeland Oscar Stanley, had fallen ill with a life-threatening resurgence of tuberculosis. Back in the day, the best treatment for tuberculosis was fresh air with much sunlight and a hearty diet. Like many luggers of his day, Stanley decided to take the remedy air of the Rocky Mountains. In March, he and his wife Flora arrived in Denver, Colorado. In June, on the recommendations of Dr. Sherman Grant Bonney, moved to Estes Park, Colorado for the rest of the season. By 1907, Stanley had recovered completely, but he was not content with the rustic accommodations, lazy pastimes, and relaxed social scene of their new summer home. Stanley resolved to turn Estes Park into a resort town. In 1907, construction began on Hotel Stanley. Hotel Stanley is a 48-room grand hotel that catered to the class of moderately wealthy urbanities who composed the Stanley social circle back east, as well as to the consumptives seeking the healthful climate. In 1908, the land was purchased through representatives of the 4th Earl of Dunraven and Mount Earl, the Anglo-Irish, who had originally acquired it by stretching the provisions of the Homestead Act of 1862 and preemption rights between 1872 and 1884. Between 1872 and 1884, Lord Dunraven claimed 15,000 acres of Estes Valley in an unsuccessful attempt to create a private hunting preserve, making him one of the largest foreign holders of American lands. Dunraven was unpopular with the local ranchers and farmers. He left the area in 1884, regulating the ranch to the management of an overseer. His presence in Colorado was parodied in Charles King's novel Dunraven Ranch and James A. Mitchell's Centennial. His reputation was such that when Stanley suggested, quote, the Dunraven, end quote, as a name for his new hotel, 180 people signed a buckskin petition requesting that he name it for himself instead. In 1909, the main hotel concert hall was completed. In 1910, the manor was completed. Upon opening, the hotel was allegedly to be one of the few in the world powered entirely by electricity. The lack of available power induced the installation of an auxiliary gas lighting system in June 1911. On June 25th, the day after the pipes had been filled, an explosion occurred that injured a man and damaged the structure. A brief article telegraphed the New York Dispatch of New York, Pennsylvania, and circulated by the Associated Press the following day, said Stanley Hotel, built at a cost of $500,000, was partly wrecked last night by an explosion of gas. 8 persons were injured, 1 seriously. None of the guests were injured. Elizabeth Wilson of Lancaster, PA, a hotel employee, was hurled from the second to the first floor, and both ankles were broken. The other 7 are waiters. When the Lancaster paper reprinted the story, the editor noted that Elizabeth Wilson's name did not appear in local directories, and she could not be identified as Lancastrian. Similar accounts in local Colorado papers gave the maid's name as Elizabeth Lambert and convey various dramatic details that were not confirmed by other articles. The most comprehensive and detailed article on the incident appeared on June 29th in the Fort Collins Express and seems to be the most accurate, positively refuting that the maid had been, quote, hurled from the second to the first floor, end quote. To bring guests from the nearest train depot in the foothills town of Loins, Colorado, Stanley's car company produced a fleet of specially designed steam-powered vehicles called mountain wagons that seated multiple passengers. Stanley operated the hotel almost as a pastime, remarking once that he spent more money than he made each summer. In 1926, Stanley sold his hotel to a private company incorporated for the sole purpose of running it. In 1929, the venture failed. Stanley purchased the property out of foreclosure, selling it again in 1930 to fellow automobile and hotel magnate Roe Emory of Denver. Stanley lived to 91, dying of a heart attack in Newton, Massachusetts, 1 year after his wife in 1940. In 1974, during American horror writer Stephen King and his wife Tabitha's brief residency in Boulder, Colorado, they spent one night at the Stanley Hotel. Stephen and Tabitha King found themselves checking into the Stanley Hotel just as its other guests were checking out, due to the hotel shutting down for the winter season. After they checked in, Tabitha went to bed, and King roamed the halls and went to the hotel bar, where the drinks were served by a bartender named Gardy. Later, when King went to the bathroom, he pulled back the pink curtain for the tub that had claw feet. King thought, quote, "What if somebody died here?" End quote. He knew at that moment he had a book. In a 1977 interview by the Literary Guild, King recounted more of his visit. He talked about how he got the bones for the book The Shining. King said, quote, "While we were living in Boulder, we heard about this terrific old mountain resort hotel and decided to give it a try. But when we arrived, they were just getting ready to close for the season, and we found ourselves the only guests in the place, with all those long, empty corridors. And by the time I went to bed that night, I had the whole book, The Shining, in my mind." End quote. In another retelling, King said, quote, "I dreamed of my 3-year-old son running through the corridors, looking back over his shoulders, eyes wide, screaming. He was being chased by a fire hose. I woke up with a tremendous jerk, sweating all over, within an inch of falling out of bed. I got up, lit a cigarette, and was done. I had the books of The Shining firmly set in my mind." End quote. The Shining was published in 1977 and became the third great success of King's career after Carrie and Salem's Lot. The primary setting in an isolated Colorado resort named the Overlook Hotel, which closes for the winter. Now let's talk about the haunting of the Stanley Hotel. Room 217 at the Overlook Hotel features significantly in The Shining. The room with the same number at the Stanley is alleged to have been at the same one offered to Stephen King during his 1974 stay. But on June 25, 1911, an incident much greater took place that started the room's haunted reputation. The hotel's power had gone out after a large flood occurred, so Freeland Stanley wanted his guests to have a source of light. So he gave each room a gas-powered lantern. Gas built up between the dining room and the second floor created tremendous pressure between the hotel's walls. Although electricity was readily available to the hotel's guests, Stanley installed a gas generator in his nearby manor and gas lamps in each room in case of power outages. The hotel had just been piped for gas usage the winter prior, and up until then the system had never been used. That morning there was an indication that the electrical plant was having issues that could lead to failure. The staff was instructed to activate the gas system. The pipes filled with the odorless gas for the first time. They had likely not been tested, and the pressure led to the formation of the small leak above the dining room. Head chambermaid Elizabeth Liz Wilson, or Lettenberger, as she was referred to in one newspaper article, ignited the escaping gas when she lit a candle in room 217. Reports of the explosive event claimed that the bathtub flew up into the air. Several doors were blown off their hinges, and at least 10 plate glass windows on the ground floor blew below. And at least 10 plate glass windows on the ground floor below the room were shattered. The explosion destroyed 10% of the 70,000 square foot hotel and all of the West Wing. The damages were estimated to be 10,000, but the real damage had not yet to appear. Elizabeth Wilson, who had moved to Estes Park from Philadelphia and had been working on the hotel since it opened, was severely injured during the blast. Being spared the fate of the bathtub, she plunged into the dining room below her. She did not die despite breaking both her ankles. 2 waiters were injured along with her. One was struck in the face with a flying plank, while the other suffered a painful but non-lethal dislocated hip. Some versions of the story claim that 2 other maids were with her during the explosion. One of them was thrown into the wall, but still heroically grabbed a fire extinguisher and fought the inferno the best she could. Many renditions of the tale say that Elizabeth, also called Elizabeth Lambert, fell into a coma. She stayed into a coma anywhere from 2 days to 2 years. But when she woke, she went right back to work. Employees and tour guides at the Stanley Hotel say that Stanley paid her medical bills and made her head chambermaid upon her return. 5 local newspapers reported the incident the next day. While there seems to be some confusion over the name of the person injured, there is a common consensus that the wounded were taken to a hospital in nearby Longmont. Whether or not Elizabeth, a woman of many last names, fell into a coma remains a mystery. But she worked at the Stanley Hotel for the rest of her life, dying at an old age of 1950. Dying at an old age in 1950, almost immediately after reports of haunting activity in room 217 began. Guests have claimed her spirit still encompasses the room. They state that when they wake for the day, the room is cleaner than when they fell asleep. Their clothes are folded and their suitcases are organized. Married couples tend to have a mostly peaceful stay, where the spirits are only cleaning up the space around them. But unmarried couples have reported a cold and chilling being coming into bed next to them as they slept. She is known for taking the luggage of single men and leaving it outside the door, letting them know their bachelor lifestyle is not welcome at the Stanley. Guests have reported seeing her walk through walls and interrupting their sleep for many years. A tour supervisor for the Stanley Hotel named Rachel Thomas claimed that she was mysteriously made ill on the floor of 217. The floor and the room are not the only thing creepy. The hotel includes an on-site pet cemetery where some of the owner's animals have been laid to rest over the years. A friendly golden retriever named Cassie is said to still deliver newspapers and scratch at the doors to be let in from the outside, despite being buried at the grounds. Plus, a large cave system is located under the hotel. The reason for a large cave system is that in the early days of Stanley, it was seen as unprofessional for the staff to be seen by guests, so employees used the underground pathways to travel between rooms in the hotel's bar, restaurant, and laundry facilities. The ghost of a pastry chef is said to haunt the caves, as evidenced by an alluring and inexplicable scent of baked goods that are frequently reported there. In room 7, multiple guests have reported an odd experience of being tucked into bed by some invisible force, and others have felt someone sit on the foot of the bed only to find nothing but the indentation on the covers when they switched on the light. The 4th floor of the main building is said to be more filled with spirits than the lobby. Small ghost children have been reported running around the floor. Many visitors leave lollipops for them as small treats, only to find that many of them moved to new and hard-to-reach locations the next day. While this may seem sweet, the rest of the floor is not so sweet. Room 401, according to some, the creepiest room in the hotel, and it is thought to be haunted by an unfriendly male ghost by some accounts. Women have claimed that they were inappropriately touched by an unknown presence while standing in the room's closet. One man claimed that he had witnessed his wedding ring, inexplicably, moved from the bathroom counter to fall into the drain of the sink in the bathroom. 407 is known to be the home of an enraged Irishman who watches sadly from the corner, flicking lights and sometimes pulling hair. He has been named Lord Dunraven, alluding to the unpopular Irish earl who once ruled the land. In room 428, something different is haunting. It is said that this is haunted by a mountain man named Jimmy Rocky Mountain Nugent. Rocky Mountain Jim was an infamous outlaw of the years preceding Colorado's statehood. Half his face was disfigured from a grizzly bear fight, and his name struck fear in the hearts of people across the Rockies. Jim opposed Lord Dunraven's purchase of his land in the 1870s and was shot for it, dying months later with a bullet lodged in his brain. Guests in room 428 say they feel the presence of a man sitting at the foot of their bed. Female guests have even reported the tickle of phantom lips brushing them awake in the middle of the night. There aren't any rooms above this room, yet over the years there have been multiple reports of strange sounds like furniture being moved and footsteps coming from the ceiling. Mirrors facing each other create a portal for the spirit realm, allowing the Stanley spirits to remain where they were once happiest. Reports of female apparitions walking their way out of the Stanley Hotel vortex have been sighted on news sites all across the world. It acts as a portal to hell, ushering in hundreds of confused and desolate entities, and is one of the most famous connections between the dead and the living in the U.S. Other rumors are that the Stanley Hotel was once built upon Native American burial ground, but doubts exist about this theory. Another is that the high levels of magnetic quartz in the soil causes the hauntings. This was later disproven by the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society. The concert hall, the second building to the right of the main lobby, is said to be the most haunted of the Stanley Hotel's 11 buildings. It was initially for Flora Stanley by her husband in the style of the Boston Symphony Hall. Multiple spirits call the concert hall home, but the most well-known is Lucy. Lucy lived in the hotel during some of its darkest days. Lucy's ghost is known to be highly active. Like the other spirits, she is still happy to call Stanley home, and she is most often witnessed in the room she once slept in. Visitors on ghost tours or brave solo adventurers have seen the door to this room open and close on its own. These actions are often accompanied by the strange whisper of a woman who is not there, sending chills down the spines of the living. Lucy is known to manipulate flashlights during one of the hotel's Lucy is also known to manipulate flashlights during one of the hotel's many ghost hunts. In the lobby, there's a photo of a hotel guest in the concert hall. Behind her reflection is a ghastly apparition of another woman, believed to be Lucy. Two irritable and nosy spirits join Lucy in the concert hall, Paul and Edward. Both Paul and Edward were handymen at the Stanley and are eternally tending to their former office in torment. Paul died of a heart attack, surviving the initial attack, but dying in the car on the way to the hospital. He often yells at others to get out and is very particular about closing time. His ghost is most active after 11 p.m. curfew that he once so proudly enforced. If you thought Paul was unfriendly, Edward was even less friendly. Loud and aggressive bangs have been reported in the concert hall near the front of the building, where he once worked. Tour guides at the Stanley said that he wasn't a big fan of people alive, and it seems that nothing has changed in death. There have been many unpleasant run-ins with the spirit, have made the concert hall an epicenter of activity. It is said that Freeland and Flora Stanley haunt their beloved hotel alongside their faithful workers. The 217 wine bar in the lobby, once the music room, features a 7.5-foot Steinway piano that once belonged to Miss Stanley. Flora Stanley suffered a stroke and died 10 days later. She was a woman who loved the Rocky Mountains as much as her husband, but she loved playing music. This is a passion she carried on into the afterlife. Her piano is often heard eerily playing itself late at night. It seems Miss Stanley isn't comfortable with just anyone playing her prized possession. The piano cover has slammed down on many fingers, attempting to tickle her keys without permission. Stanley, who passed in 1940, hangs around his wife in the music room. They both enjoy the long evenings spent entertaining their guests. His face is often seen in reflections throughout the lobby. It somehow worked its way into the American flag gifted to the hotel, seemingly burning his image into the patriotic gift. There have been many reports of parties carrying on late into the night in the ballroom nearby. The clink of glasses and cheerful laughter echo through the empty hotel. In the winter months, Stanley is often seen in the ballroom enjoying the fruits of his labor. The Stanley Hotel is where the living check in and out, and the dead stay checked in.